El Paso, where we have them as 11th, the fans have them 12th. Uh, John, who's in, who's out for the Locomotive?
The Locomotive actually lost a ton of guys just on. They had like a lot of loans from what was it, Juarez, I think. Eda Borelli and Yuma also retired. Joaquin Rivas out. Ricardo Zacharias out. Willow Bacchignoti back in Miami. Miles Lyons and Nick Hines gone. I'm going to shut up now because that's too many names. But you do look at them bringing in Memo Diaz at fullback, also Alvaro Quezada and Gabby Torres at fullback. Some midfield help with Frank DeRoma and Kofi Twomesi. Then Frank Lopez and Beto Avila, kind of the big names up top.
John, I'm actually going to kick it straight back to you
We're saving the
because,
big man for last year. Yeah,
well, that and also you're the one that's high on this team.
that's right.
I want to get the positives out of the way before we eventually go to Phil, which is bound to be doom and gloom.
Look, I understand the doubt. Like you look at that striker spot, and that is a whole lot of nothing. And that's with respect to Frank Lopez, who's good for 8 goals a season or so. But there was something about the way that Wilmer Cabrera was able to organize this team late in 2024. And the Locomotive weren't plowing over teams, but the form they put up late in the season was good enough to be in the playoff mix. Returning the core that put that together, whether it's Ricky Ruiz and Coronado, who came in late, someone like a Palermo Ortiz, who I thought was pretty excellent in the back line, that's a standard. That's a baseline of being okay at a minimum. Memo Diaz, I think, is a pretty transformational player. So if you can get the contributions at the number 9, if the defense holds, I think El Paso is going to be in the mix. And just given the fact that I don't trust more than half of the West at this point, why can't they be a playoff team?
Ryan, this has been a team that has been in borderline free fall since Lowry left. There's a whole lot there that you can talk about with just kind of distrust from fans to front office. Again, kind of the story of a lot of teams out in the West right now. Is there a world for you that things kind of turn around? And if so, what steps do you think have to be made by the club to regain the trust?
Yeah, I mean, they've brought in Wilmer Cabrera, who, I mean, say what you will about his second stint at RGV, but his first stint, he won nearly half the games that he was there with. And John, you had mentioned their at least good start or good finish to the end of last season. Out of their final 14 games played, they only had 4 defeats in that time. So there was at least a stability that they gained as the 2024 kind of drew to a close. I know the season kind of was what it was when it got to that point, but El Paso having the stability of having Cabrera through the offseason to try and just provide a little bit of calmness to the team, I feel like is something that's going to go a long ways. One thing that they're probably going to have to need to start this upcoming year is patience, because you draw Colorado Springs, Phoenix, New Mexico as your first 3 games. That's a very tough opening slate, but there are going to be patches in this year where they can find those results there where, and like John has mentioned, the West is chaotic enough that any kind of random team is able to move up. Like we didn't think Las Vegas last year was going to be in the position that they were as well. So, I mean, like, why not El Paso?
Phil, I'm not going to just completely let you cook. I'm going to give you some kind of, because the last, I want to have some positive thoughts before it eventually
Sure.
turns. I like Ruiz and Diaz on the wing backs. I know last year it was, wing backs go forward, they don't come back. But, I do like what they have to give. Dollemeyer, I think, is a really, really good center back. Jamali Waite is a fantastic goalkeeper. And I can talk myself into Cavallo and Coronado. There we go. Those are players I can really talk myself into. And then the question is like, is a Lopez going to work? Is a Moshabani going to work? Is a Moreno going to work? There's a real upside with this team.
Yeah, no, I think there are players like you said, like Jamali Waite returning to this team was probably the shock of the season. Like I had zero hope that Jamali Waite would be back after the absolute shooting gallery that he oversaw like last year. And he had a high profile like stint in the Gold Cup. It's like there's no way this guy is coming back. The fact he is a big win for the team. Absolutely. I don't know if he's coming back because he's like, maybe I'll also win Save of the Week every single week and like and be able to build my profile even more. But no, a few of the things that you mentioned, like I think the weight is definitely on Amano Moreno and Tumi Moshibane to recreate something close to 2 seasons ago, because there's not a volume goal scorer up top like in the 9 spot, so they are going to have to generate a lot of goals from the wing. I think having some genuine strikers like can unlock them. My concern about this team, the way that it's constructed, is that like Eric Calvillo is now in like entering his 4th season with El Paso Locomotive, and his best stretch for this team was under John Hutchinson playing as an 8, like the furthest forward midfielder in a 3. And ever since the change, when he's had to play a lot in a 2, he's been a worse version of himself because he's a really good striker of the ball, a really good passer of the ball, and a really like forward-thinking player that has had to do a lot of defending, like, and a lot of tracking back and I just like, I don't know that a double, like this sort of double pivot of Calvillo Coronado is my favorite version of like what they could have. So that's where the concerns start. I think that the other concern is just with center back depth. I think that's like my biggest concern is just like what happens if one of those guys gets hurt. You play with a back 3 and you only have 4 senior center backs. Kenneth Hoban as like the depth option, he is 15 years old. Like he is in high school. So I just like there's gotta be some other option. And then and I I know that we joke that it's like doom and gloom for Locomotive, and I have like maybe larger concerns just about like the organization. But the reality for this club is that in the brightest spot of the season last year under Wilmer Cabrera, they had 3 games where they scored more than 1 goal. And across the entire season, they did not score 3 goals in 1 game at all. They didn't do it once. So like this is mentality wise, like this team has to figure out a way, like, because there are players who genuinely are coming off like career worst seasons that now have to like be able to play with confidence. And we have to acknowledge that like even at its best, it was like solid, but far from anything like exciting. And this team is just going to have to score more goals, like if they want to be in the playoff conversation.
I mean, if we're the front office, if we are the strikers, we are the goal scorers here, right? They got to do something. They got to put the ball into the back of the net. If it's not working, change it. As one guy said, adapt or die.
I think if Moreno and Moshibane are genuinely playing on the wings, they have a much better chance than whatever it was we tried to do with them last year. So if it is a front 3 and they're on the wings, I think that they have a better chance of reproducing that form. But yeah, it didn't click necessarily in an attacking sense at the end of last year. So hopefully they're building something a little more serious. That being said, they did lose 2-1 to San Antonio. So I'm hoping, and their best spell of the game was like after San Antonio starters came off. So anyways, I'm hoping for the best, but we'll see.
But they didn't tweet about it. It's fine. It didn't happen.